Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel. Welcome to a relatively rare GT Sport Daily Racing race review. This week we're at Fuji International Speedway. We're in the Group 3 machinery and this one gets a little bit filthy. Now I'm not going to have a chance to live stream until a little bit later in the week, so that's why I thought I'd fire out this rather entertaining race review video. We're in the Jaguar F-type, we're on our Australian account, recording this race around about 9:30 on the Monday morning, so the EMEA lobbies are pretty quiet at that time, so our Australian and Japanese and other Asian region are awake at this time, fully delved into Daily Racing, so why not do a quick race on our Aussie account. So we're standing in P15, we're in the Jaguar F-type, and we are going to make a rather optimistic move into turn number 1. Now we do get the car stopped very nicely on the apex, take a nice tight line, absolutely zero contact with the two drivers in front of us. We do manage to overtake, I think, a Rothmans liveried Beetle, but we've got a Supra on our inside as we come into turn number 2, so we need to leave a little bit of room there, and the Supra driver manages to keep that position. So into 100R for the first time, you're going to see there's a little scuffle developing in front of us and a few penalties are starting to appear. Unfortunately not contact penalties because the new update did not bring the contact penalties back, just track limits penalties at the moment. So two drivers with 0.5 seconds to serve on the main straight. That's looking like a couple of further positions to make up as we get to the end of lap number 1. So fairly tricky situation into the chicane here, but we all managed to kind of just about get through it with no contact. And unfortunately this is going to be the end of where the racing is relatively clean and things start to get a little bit contacty, might be the best word for it. So the Porsche has kind of semi-forced their way through, put us out of position, and we're going to have the same done to us by a Supra into the second to last turn. So we're then going to show the Supra, well, yeah, we can do that as well. We can throw up the inside willy-nilly and take back positions and just sort of not care about that kind of stuff. We did do it without contact, I might add, but this is the big problem with Fuji in my opinion. The nature of the circuit just means that, you know, if you're trying to take the quickest racing line, you're leaving the door wide open into corners like throughout the last sector. It's kind of the same down into turn number 1. We'd be very early here, to be perfectly honest with you. We've got the Supra on our inside. We decided to back out because I had a funny feeling they weren't going to leave us any room, and that did tend to be the case. However, this Beetle driver is going to dispatch of the Supra driver for us with that lovely side swipe there. I'm not entirely sure what was going on, but I did notice as this race progressed that the Beetle driver certainly is fairly questionable. We are going to have a little bit of an incident with the Beetle driver in due course. So yeah, I do like Group 3 at Fuji, I must say. It's a entertaining combo. I enjoy driving the Group 3 cars around here a little bit more than the Group 2 cars, but just the nature of the circuit means that it's very, very lungy, and in my opinion probably the worst circuit to race drivers who lack a little bit of discipline and patience and racecraft, because they will just see any invitation or any kind of wide line into the corners through this last sector, turn number 1, the chicane, which you kind of need to do to sort of maximise your lap time. They'll just see that as an open door and they will happily slam their car through it if you give them just an inch too much room. Anyway, approaching the end of lap number 2 here, we're P13, so a net gain of 2 positions. But we were kind of lunged a few times into the penultimate and last corner on lap number 1. But we have a run on the Beetle driver, who appears to have a few issues with other cars trying to overtake them. So we're going to go to the outside here. The Beetle driver's got a BMW in front of them. We're going to brake nice and late, so we've got the car ahead of the Beetle driver. I think we've earned the right to be in this position, but the Beetle driver is just going to nudge us off onto that AstroTurf, and anyone who is familiar with that AstroTurf on the outside of turn number 1 knows you run a very high risk of spinning once you're out there. We do kind of semi-spin, we managed to save it, but it does cost us a further couple of positions. Have to say, that one really did annoy me quite a lot. So let's take a look at it from the Beetle driver's perspective. They're on the inside, our car appears on the outside. We give the Beetle driver loads of room. I think it's fair to say that we've earned the right to have our car in that position. We're fully alongside on the exit of turn number 1. It just looks like the merest of contacts, and if that happened to me, having not seen any of the Beetle driver's previous behaviour, I would have just put it down to a racing instinct, but I do believe that the Beetle driver is pretty dirty and deliberately just nudged our car wide. You're going to see up ahead the Beetle driver making plenty of contact with other cars and just generally being a bit of a numpty. Good Scottish word there for you, numpty. A sort of polite way of calling somebody an idiot, and I think that kind of aptly describes the Beetle driver up ahead. So having to go defensive there into the chicane, again that's another thing I find with Fuji. You find yourself having to go defensive constantly just to try and put drivers off from making a move, and the McLaren driver was pretty close behind us into the chicane there, so probably a sensible thing to defend it, and we all get through it there cleanly. Track limits penalty for the GTR. The Beetle driver, our numpty friend ahead, again getting involved in the wars and contact with other cars. So having seen some of the driving that had gone on already, and despite the fact that it was at least one lap too early, I decided I didn't really fancy being involved with these guys too much more, and we're going to come into the pit lane and we'll just quickly discuss strategy. So we've started on the medium tyres. Both the mediums and the softs are available, both are mandatory, and if you've seen the strategy guide, you at least want to be doing 4 laps, preferably 5 on the mediums before moving on to soft tyres. So we have pitted at least 1 lap too early, probably 2 laps too early, but it was the right thing to do, because as we jump forward here to lap number 8 and as the pit stops have all kind of progressed, we are up into P number 5, courtesy here of Tactical Alpha taking out the fellow Porsche driver. Friffy, I believe that driver's name is. So that driver had done a really good job as well, because they actually started behind us. I believe they started on the soft tyres, kind of worked their way through the grid, and by the time they'd made their pit stop they were actually ahead of us. But Tactical Alpha has taken care of that problem for us with a questionable bit of driving. I never actually watched back the replay, but it does look like the Malaysian driver went off the track and just rejoined right onto the path of the other Porsche driver and took them out. Now, the Malaysian driver here had fairly recently just made a pit stop, and we are on pretty old soft tyres by this point. I wasn't sure why they were quite so slow through the last sector, but we get a run down into turn number 1, get it nicely stopped on the brakes into the apex, and we complete that move, and that's actually now a net P2 with another further couple of drivers pitting. But we knew we were going to be in trouble, we knew we were going to be under pressure from some other drivers as this race progressed, particularly with the tyre wear. But matters not helped here by Tactical Alpha at the same corner where they took out the fellow Porsche driver, just driving into the back of us and sending us wide. Rejoin onto P4 there, so not a complete disaster. Let's take a look at the replay for this one. Now we go defensive, and then I just think the Porsche driver is going to go down the outside anyway, so we actually move our car over to the right hand side, so the left hand side a little bit, and I'm not sure if that was deliberate or whether it was just a miscommunication in the braking zone. There's definitely an argument that we moved our car in the braking zone, but unfortunate for us, Tactical Alpha gets to carry on, and we're down into P4 with a couple of lively looking cars behind us. And with these very worn tyres, it was always going to be difficult to keep this P4. However, we got the elbows out, it has to be said, and we kind of drove defensively in a way that I very rarely do. And a couple of laps later, we have managed to hold on to 4th position. We've got the close attentions of a Corvette with much fresher tyres behind us. I could see they were much quicker than us. We really couldn't fight this battle. They get alongside us onto the main straight, and the Corvette power is going to mean that we have very little chance of maintaining this position. Despite the fact that we're in the Jaguar, no slouch in a straight line itself, the Corvette will just pull ahead as we get to the top end. In the meantime, Friffy in the Porsche has got a massive slipstream and is going to go for a very optimistic move down the inside of both of us. Going to appear on our right hand side there, make contact with our front right, and not just slightly wide, and take that position, and also actually take P4 as well. So I wasn't especially happy with that one either. Let's take a look at the replay from Friffy's point of view. So they do have a big old slipstream. They come into the braking zone. On sort of first viewing, it doesn't look too bad. They get the car kind of slowed down. Not a massive contact with our car, but it does mean that we get pushed slightly wide. But on looking back at it, let me tell you why I'm not especially happy with this position, and it's kind of the trajectory of the Porsche here. You can see if they're going to come in from that tight of a line, then they kind of do have to keep it tight into the apex, and you can see they did understeer wide into our car. But no big deal, it's just a little bit of racing. But at the time, having defended that position for a couple of laps, I was a little bit annoyed. And we still had time for one further banging doors instance with another driver, the Subaru driver, into turn number 4 there, coming from a long way behind. Take a look at the replay here. So they come from a long way behind, we're already committed to turn into the corner, and they kind of half spin our car. However, coming down towards the chicane here, Pan Mac in the Subaru obviously realised that was a little bit too much on their part. They're going to run wide deliberately into the chicane and give us the position back. So nice to see a little bit of sportsmanship on display there. Thank you very much to Pan Mac. They do have plenty of time to attack us into the last sector here and down towards the finish, because our tyres are completely shot by this point. And we do manage to hold them off. We're going to maintain the 6th position here, but a frustrating 6th position because we have a couple of incidents with drivers that definitely cost us a lot of time that was fairly unnecessary on their part. But let's be honest, it's Fuji, it's the kind of track that just seems to kind of encourage that kind of driving. As I said, a little bit of lack of discipline into some of the braking zones. Because of the way you take the lines into some of the last corners, it kind of opens the door and drivers just can't resist the temptation, I guess, to try and walk through that open door. But let me know how your races at Fuji are going. Have you had a similar experience to myself? Now, don't get me wrong, I've had some half decent races around Fuji as well, even on this account, and hopefully once we get to live stream towards the back end of the week, we should get some good clean racing. Do join me for that if you can. But if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye now.